What do we need to know about building A-thread and V-thread ice anchors? Hello again, I'm Jason. A-threads and V-threads. Both anchors are constructed by joining two bored holes in the ice, with an A-thread usually referring to a vertically oriented anchor, and V-thread being horizontal. Both are strong enough to hold the forces common in repelling. Neither is recommended as a standalone belay anchor. Why is that? If we were to boil down what makes an A thread or a V thread strong, we would want to focus in on the amount of ice enveloped by the bores and the quality of that ice. To think about the amount of ice, we can talk about triangles and their area. Let's take the typically recommended construction of boring holes at a 60-degree angle to the ice and imagine a 21 centimeter screw used to construct it. That would make an equilateral triangle with an area of 190.96 centimeters squared. Now, let's change our angles to 75 degrees. We now have a narrow isosceles triangle with only 110.25 centimeters squared. But what if we bored in at 45-degree angles? That would make a right triangle at the back and maximize our surface area to 220.50 centimeters squared. Wouldn't we want to do that? Well, that may be harder to build. It's easier to measure an equilateral triangle because we can use the screw length to cite where to bore the next hole. Using the same 21 centimeter screw, we would need 29.7 centimeters across the front. That's some weird screw plus just more than a third length. Additionally, the farther apart the holes, the farther out we need to build our master point in order to avoid a wide angle that amplifies the forces on each hole. So it'd take more material to build. But more importantly, we also need to consider ice quality. At a 45-degree angle, the peak of the triangle sits further towards the surface of the ice. That increases the risk of having newer, more airy ice. How do we know if we hit airy ice? Well, there are two things we want to pay attention to. First, do we notice the ice screw being temporarily too easy to spin? And second, do we see the core coming out with gaps in its flow? And there is one more part of the physics of these thread anchors that we want to consider, and that is the tendency for vertical ice, like waterfall ice, to crack horizontally. Therefore, the vertical orientation of an A thread, placing the holes on two different horizontal planes, will be less likely to fail. Indeed, an off-cited study, Ice Climbing Anchor Strength and In-Depth Analysis, by Marc Beverly and Stephen W. Attaway found vertical-oriented threads, when threaded with 1-inch tubular webbing, failed at loads from 12.5 kilonewtons to 20 kilonewtons, compared with horizontal orientations, which failed at loads from 7.5 kilonewtons to 17.5 kilonewtons, all placed in good ice. I'll put a link to a good summary of this study in the description. But note the wide variation on braking strength. This is why having the possibility of larger forces during a lead fall, coupled with the chance of an anchor to just be a weaker one, lead people to not using it alone while moving up. It's easier to recommend being able to rappel off of these threaded anchors. So A-threads are generally stronger. They are also easier to thread in the material because gravity can help, and at least for me, I find them easier to cite the angle of the second bore so that it comes into contact with the first. Let's build an A-thread then. We are looking for a nice plane of ice, fairly uniform in a clear or blue color, which suggests fewer air pockets. And I'll envision my triangle so that I can leave room for each bore. I usually start with the bottom placement, as it's easier to sight down the top placement as the second placement when I need to ensure it intersects with the first bore. I can push in perpendicular to the ice and grind a starting pock. Once I have a lip, I can now push the screw in the desired angle between the 45 and 60 degrees that we discussed. Drill the hole and monitor the spin and the core to ensure we didn't hit any air pockets. Now I measure a screw length, and maybe plus a little if we took a sharper angle than 60 degrees. I sight the vertical angle from the side to ensure the bores will connect, and I sight the horizontal angle from the front. Now I repeat the process of the initial grind and boring the hole. I can blow through the top hole, and if crystals shoot out the bottom hole, I'm reassured that they are connected, and I've also cleared debris out of the bores. Now I can take my material and slide through the top bore. I use my thread tool, or even just a clothes hanger bent into a hook, and fish out the end of my material. Before I connect the two ends of my material, I want to make sure that I have enough material so that the internal angle of it is 45 degrees or less, keeping me from multiplying the force applied to those holes. A threads and V threads were once thought to be sketchy. Modern studies have proved otherwise. Is there anything else that you once thought was unsafe but have come to learn more about? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, do all the things. For more information, you can go to our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. And if you are into ice climbing, you can check out this video about how to efficiently perform the foundational movement sequence of ice climbing, or check out the whole series on ice climbing. See you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.